don't feel too doomed. God is real.
Right.
He composts a culture and he grows really great crops in that compost. And I think that's where we are. We're in late stages of compost. Boys have even stopped watching TV or movies. And so in this conversation, when people are like, man, there's just not very many books for boys anymore. And I think, man, we're so far past that.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
Welcome to 180, the special 180 edition of SASF.
Where we talk about books for boys.
It's where we turn around backwards and talk about how stories are not soul food. We're going to do a 180.
Yeah, we're just tired of people talking about how important stories are.
We're sick of it.
And they're not soul food.
Yeah, let's talk about books for boys. That's what we should talk about.
Books for boys.
Books for boys.
I don't know if you scanned a YA bestseller list recently, Nate.
Not recently, but...
Not in quite some time.
Maybe a couple months ago.
Your wife sent me some data on the fact that the only person that is a male on the YA bestseller lists is Christopher Paolini.
Chris Paolini.
Still, apparently, for his novel Murtaugh. If I remember, Murtaugh's one of the bad guys, but I could be totally mixed up. It's been quite a while since
It hung, either way, it was up there on the list for a while.
And there's no one else. And he was saying that this is indicative of the state of fiction for boys. That's why men don't read, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of commenting on another tweet by somebody who did analysis of how many white males had been on the bestseller lists or on the honors nominations or anything like that in the last couple of years. I don't remember what he was breaking down, but basically it was dire. So, it was very, very dire. It was entirely kind of DEI'd. But that's not new.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Isn't publishing renowned for being 80% women working, 50% women at the higher executive levels, 80% women working? Or at least if I'm pulling my numbers correctly, I'll have to do some research to double check. But there's a majority of women working in publishing. Yeah. And every time I say this, I sound like I'm whining. So I don't like talking about it much.
Whine, Brian, whine.
It's like, how come there aren't more male authors? But I don't know. It just seems like
because they're bad at it.
Yeah, selection bias is a part of this.
Well, I'm here to say what I'm here to say, Brian.
You're the one who's been published in this space, so why don't you tell me?
I'm here to say that the decay is far more advanced than anybody realizes.
Oof.
So
this is a black pill.
This little tweet that had like 52 million views or whatever it was, somebody breaking down like the lack of books for boys and stuff. I mean, the publishers were telling me this when I got my first deal in 2005.
Okay.
And in 2005, 20 years ago.
Wow, two decades ago.
They were saying, boys aren't reading. We're failing to reach a masculine audience. We really, 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 really need to. Or apocalypse. We need boys who read. We need male literacy to be a thing. We need them to engage in all the benefits of reading and everything else. All true. So I had multiple publishers pursuing Leepike Ridge and 100 Cupboards, and in large part because, hey,
a male.
It works.
Nate was a breathing white male.
Yeah, it works. It's like these books work for male and female audiences. Boys will like these books. They will not be put off by these books. They will not be deterred. Yeah. But we're talking about it like J.K. Rowling was J.K. Rowling, so they wouldn't know, male readers wouldn't know the author was female because they needed to capture those male readers.
To the boys?
Boys are notoriously picky, like really notoriously picky when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to whom will they listen, things like that. And so that was already an issue.
So boys are slightly prejudiced, you'd say, against...
Picky. Very, very picky.
Yeah.
So that 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy is a very, very picky reader, and he should be. And girls are, for whatever reason, far more adaptable and flexible and read far more broadly, and that's always been the case. So getting a boy to engage with Jane Austen when he's 12 versus getting a girl to read Jane Austen and also other things that are like Dune.
Yeah.
If she's
39
reading
Steps or something like that.
Yeah, a teenage girl is willing to read far more broadly. Now, she might narrow into her taste and just stay on that one note and play that one piano key over and over and over again. She might become that way, in which case you need to deter her, get her reading other stuff. I've told the story before about how my mom got me to read anything other than Lord of the Rings. And I'd gotten to a place where I would only read like sections of Lord of the Rings. Then she read aloud a portion of King Solomon's Mines to me, a chapter called The Witch Hunt, and then set it down and walked away. And that was it. I read King Solomon's Mines.
That's a hook baited and set.
Yep, and it worked, and it led me into all sorts of other books. So boys are notorious this way. I think it's funny is it's already too late. Like, culturally, it's too late. And I really don't know the way out right here. I think they're obviously...
You mean on a broader... Well, the whole
in terms
market.
of reaching boys with stories. So there is a subculture for whom it is not too late. You get around the classical Christian education movement, you move into homeschooling circles, classical conversations, you go to ACCS schools, you're going to find boys reading. There are subcultures where boys are reading, and boys are reading widely with a lot of experience. But when you get out, my son, now 18 in high school, I cannot think of one new book that released through his teen years where he thought, oh, man, I want to read that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Not one. So he's gone through adolescence. He's reached adulthood, early adulthood. He's read, he's read my books. He's read other books previously published.
Yeah.
But in terms of a book targeting boys or just a broad male and female audience, good luck.
Let me just read you the top 5 titles real quick.
Do it.
See if you can find a male amongst the titles. Better Than the Movies. These are the top 5 of the YA paperback right now, right? Better Than the Movies, If He Had Been With Me, If Only I Had Told Her, Girl in Pieces, and Betting on You. Those are the top 5.
Perfect.
You see why this doesn't appeal to any teen male whatsoever. I mean, you keep going down and you finally get to The Book Thief, which is still charting after, what is that, a decade?
Yeah.
So it's funny that there's so little stuff on the YA paperback list.
But they have so much work to do now.
Yeah.
Because the audience went away. Like that's
pretty sad.
It left.
Yeah.
So subcultures remain where boys read.
That's manga and graphic novels, right? I mean, that's going to be... No, neither of those?
Nope.
They're not... Boys aren't even reading those. Those are just for girls, too.
I mean, that's like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, it comes and it goes. Now, what I'm talking about is general market here, right? Yeah. So there's subcultures. So you will find groups of boys.
Right.
If you go to a large public school, a large public high school, you will find a subset where here's this little swath of boys who are reading some manga.
Right.
Some graphic novel. It's happening over there. If you go to homeschool conventions, they're reading my stuff. They're reading Andrew Peterson. They're reading Sam Smith.
Yeah.
The younger boys are reading Sam Smith, and families are reading Wingfeather. And this is kind of all, it's happening in that subculture. Mm-hmm. It is not happening in the culture. So there are these subcultures where people read still, and they're small. And then there's the culture.
So you mean a Barnes and Noble in the country is not setting up to sell books to males?
No.
Period.
And let's go a degree past that. And this is the intel I have. Boys have even stopped watching TV or movies.
Oh no!
So
I never thought I'd say that, but
right? We're
like,
actually. So you think about we stopped telling stories to boys in the publishing world quite some time ago. Though, where did those boys go? They went to Netflix, right? No, not anymore. Nope. When's the last time that boys collectively wanted to go see a movie or all went and watched a show. And it's sometimes, so like Deadpool and Wolverine is probably,
I'd get some.
It's like really frat humor. It's just completely like debased, like kind of leaning and marketing to the lowest masculine instincts, right? Mm-hmm. And they got a bunch of guys to come watch that. Lots and lots and lots of guys went and watched that. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of there. But think about how transgressive Deadpool is as a character contra the MCU, contra everything. And
they finally got some
kind of
to show up.
They kind of went there. So
did guys watch Dune?
Yeah.
I guess guys did.
Yeah.
And so
yes.
some teens as well.
Yep. And so what I see in film and I see in Hollywood right now is the same kind of panic that I saw in 2005, 2006 in publishing. And it's like that's where it is now. And so then they would still publish me and they would publish my books and I'm coming out and boys are reading my books and like we're getting sales and I'm touring and I'm seeing boys in just any big American city, any big public school. I'm successfully talking to, not all of them, mm-hmm. but I'm successfully reaching boys on a cultural level. And then that starts to shrink and shrink and shrink. And you have the stratification of regionalism, red state, blue state. You've got all this differentiation going on. And, that slicing and dicing that occurs. And then the content that's being published targeting boys out of New York reduces. And it becomes hectoring, preaching, manipulation, trying to change boys, and so on. So I was at I may have told the story before, but I was at some event. I don't remember what event it was, but I was at some dinner, some, publishing world dinner thing. And a member of the Newbery Committee, this is the year after Boys of Blur was published, came over and introduced themselves to me. And I didn't know. They actually kind of hit me from behind and I had to like turn my chair around and I didn't know they were a member of the Newbery Committee. I had no idea. And this person was a little buzzed, had a little too much to drink, and said, "You're Andy Wilson." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And they said, "Man, we loved Boys of Blur for the Newbery. Like, we loved it. Talked about it a ton." And I was like, "Oh, neat. Thanks." Then they said, "But, it just didn't fit with the message we were trying to send this year." I was like, "Okay," which was a postmodern like destabilization of the traditional Newbery. And they gave, I think, every single honor and the award to graphic novels. And instead of print. And so the Caldecott is for anything dependent on pictures and the Newbery is for written novels. And they wanted to kind of subvert that. And at the time, in a lot of these conversations that I was having, people thought that graphic novels were the way to get boys. And so they were lowering the bar and let's go get boys with graphic novels. Let's get them with comics. And it's like they still did, that we got them, but it was a smaller and smaller pool. Mm-hmm. And so it kept on shrinking. And now that panic has reached Hollywood. And if you talk to Amazon about what kind of shows they want testosterone. We must have testosterone.
Reacher? Is that what they think? Is that what they're going for, I guess?
Yeah,
let's get the largest.
It's their most successful show. It's not Rings of Power, it's Reacher. And he's a turkey. But then around other studios, I keep hearing we need bro soaps. We need Sons of Anarchy. We need to reach the men. The men are leaving. The men are walking away. And there are these little glimmers like Dune, where it's like, whoa, they can all still show up.
Yeah, or Top Gun Maverick.
They can all still come. They can all still engage. And it's possible. It's still possible to reach them all. And that was kind of what it was like when I started publishing in New York. You still had books hit and reach a pretty, or more balanced, I should say, maybe not a perfectly balanced, but a more balanced gender readership. You could have a book series come out and be 60-40 girls to guys instead of 90-10 or 80-20. Like you could still have that happen. And So there were books that came out and they did pop, Book Thief and so on, Hunger Games a little after, captured a lot of male readers, more female, but a lot of male readers. That could still happen. But right now, my son could hear about a show and say, oh, that would be cool. Like, that could be cool. And he went through the cycle of like, oh, Severance, I want to check out Severance, really enjoyed the beginning of Severance, and then it's like, whatever, done. Because we talked about how they could pull out Severance in the second season, but they didn't. They couldn't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the finale, but it's a crash and burn season as far as I'm concerned. And as far as he's concerned, and as far as his friends are concerned. And it's one of the weirdest things I've seen was that he and other teenage boys were interested and engaged and talking about a show that was currently releasing, that was coming out, and not anymore. Like they had them. They had a bunch of teenage boys.
Boys are so fast to be able to be like, I'm not interested anymore.
I'm out.
I'm done.
Yeah.
They're very good at that. They don't feel any regret over it, and they're quick to,
no guilt.
They're quick to move on and be like, I'm not going to do anything else.
So that's happened. And it was weird to me to see that he and his 18-year-old male friends were engaging with and discussing a show that was current. They all love The Office.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, if I think about what is a cultural shared meal that they can everybody exchange across.
You're talking about high schoolers.
High school boys across public schools everywhere, just across all the little subcultures. It's probably The Office.
Wow.
For males. Still. And it's
been
because
their parents grew up on it as well, or are they finding it on their own?
No, it's because it's funny. And there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And it's also pre-PC. There's plenty of transgressive, hilarious things in there.
Right, that they're like,
right before the woke crackdowns.
Yeah.
You couldn't do Diversity Day and make fun of Diversity Day. It lands with these teenage boys very, very differently than it did. And it's really strange. And so conversation after conversation after conversation now with executives and buyers and people who are looking for things is, do you have anything for boys and men? Because the men have dropped out of the viewer pool, as have the boys. And they kind of come in and they leave again. The women are here. They're no problem. They'll, it's really easy to make stuff for them. And yet they still roll out things that are like Netflix wanted on whatever it was, On Point or something. You want this to get a bunch of male viewers, but it's this female lead running a male dominated, basketball franchise or something. Doesn't pull them in, doesn't do it. They're running this kind of post-feminist subversion thing, and it's not working. Dune works.
Well, it's also because the males are on YouTube, right? I mean, they're on YouTube and they are doing video games. At least the kids I'm not going the whole boomer route of all they do is play video games, but it seems like what pulls massive numbers of males is the subculture of streamers, like Speed and a bunch of those Kai Cenat or a bunch of those other guys that are like, I just see them cross over onto Twitter occasionally and you realize, oh, there's millions of people, boys, getting their culture from these streamers.
Yeah.
And that's what they do is they don't watch videos. They just see what the streamer is up to. Yep. And I'm assuming the storyline or the story fix gets appeals that way to them as well because they're going on trips. I don't know.
They're doing that, but they're also crawling backwards through back catalog, and they're doing this with music too. So like they're going back through like the Western catalog of rock and roll and original hip hop and back earlier and earlier.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Same thing's happening with old film catalogs and and TV shows. So the reason why they stop at The Office and a lot of them are watching that is just because it makes them laugh and it's 20 minutes long. So it's an easy dose and that's it. You don't have a ton of time in between all your doom scrolling, which is overwhelmingly what everybody's doing.
Okay. So everybody's just, doesn't matter exactly what they're doing on the phone, but it's the phone.
Yeah. It's just doom scrolling.
And then nobody has to agree because back when we were in high school. Someone had to be like, let's watch this movie, and everyone else would be like, I don't want to watch that movie. Yeah, but now everybody has their phone, so it doesn't matter what you do.
Totally specific to your algorithm.
Right, and if there's a terrible movie on, you just zone out.
But the thing that is weird to me is you see a lot of guys, and they have been the abandoned group for longer, and they have gone into a very transgressive route.
Yeah.
And so my older son's friends at Columbia and now Yale, like these guys who are in the broader conservative, milieu.
We like fancy words on this podcast.
They're sort of there. Like, what do they all have in common? What do they share in terms of narrative, cultural narrative, and so on? And it overwhelmingly is older stuff. And Dune. So you have Dune, you've got The Office, you've got some like musically and everything else. They're pushing back. So a lot of these guys, even it's the Lord of the Rings movies. Those are like those are their childhood movies,
right? And
those are the movies that kind of stuck with them and shaped what they would like to see more of and what they enjoy, and it's their callback. And it's kind of like it feels like the last time they really served something good. So the long-term consequences of this, I can't really anticipate. I can say that the fruit so far has been unanticipated in that it has helped create the political divide that is currently showing up in Gen Z male and female division. So the guys are steeply red pilling and kind of anti-establishment, anti-world in many ways.
Yeah.
And the girls aren't.
Well, I mean, if you take my generation, the millennials, it feels like we all got worked and went super squishy. Like that was the first round of DEI stuff. Don't you feel bad?
Get sensitive.
There aren't more women represented. Don't you feel bad? And a lot of them are like, I guess I do feel bad. And so a lot of my classmates from grad school, they're so hectoring in everything they approach.
It's all scolding.
Yeah, it's scoldy. Same thing with I feel like everybody should have to try to teach a lit class to high schoolers, because you realize how quickly it ruins a book to be assigned it.
Yeah.
Like, and that educational experience of like, oh, if someone is making you read this because they think
mow the grass.
Yeah, mow the grass. It's like there's no quicker way I was realizing even just with my 6th grader, how quick it is to ruin a book and be like, oh, he's not going to like this now because he was just assigned it. I have to find a way to quick snap him out of it and be like, hey, dude, read ahead of the class right now. You'll like this book, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which feels male as well. You're just like, I don't really want to follow with
I'm not doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to, say how high when they say jump. And so that is kind of important. But it is weird to me now to have this publishing discussion where I lived it.
Yeah.
I lived it right there where they're giving me numbers and I'm talking about male readership and who we're reaching. And I'm fighting this pressure inside of the publishing world. And I'm talking to people who are saying, female executives and publishers who are saying, you're so incredibly violent and morbid. And like, I'm really not. Like, I'm not actually.
I could be so much worse.
Have you read Broadly at all?
Right.
No, I'm not. And it's never gratuitous and it's not for no reason, but the kind of things that keep boys engaged and make them go like, whoa, and ride along, they're there.
The exact
physical pain and suffering, especially Ashdown. The Ashdown series, the Outlaws of Time, it was the Snakes in the Arms. But with Leepike Ridge, when I was first coming to New York and I was first getting this book deal, I had these, conversations with publishers. I was trying to be intelligent and trying to pick the right place. And was grateful that I had that choice. But everybody wanted this because everybody was like, oh man, we have, and so they published Wednesday Wars by Gary Schmidt. They, they had Holes. We have these books like this. We need more of Holes. We need more of these books that will hit boys like this. So I'm asking them for their editorial suggestions. And with Leepike Ridge, there's this very, very intelligent publisher editor at a major house. And she's telling me that she really wants this and she loves that this is going to resonate with boys and it's so great and yada, yada, yada. And then she says, so can we take out the treasure and the guy, the man, the father figure that the boy finds? And could we just make the story about the love between a mother and her son?
Are you serious?
And I was like, no. So no, this father hunger is the thing. This is the thing that resonates. This is boys striving to rise up and be worthy and surpass their fathers. Like this drive. Could I take out the gold? The crazy man in the caves, Reg, who becomes this father figure, and even the whole issue of his dad, and just focus on, this relationship between mom and son. And it's like, yeah, one could do that.
Yeah.
If you were writing a book for moms, but not for sons.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not doable. And so everything that she was saying she wanted, we have to reach this audience. We have to go get them. We have to hang on to them. We can't let boys leave books forever. And the publishing world has chased them down the road multiple times with offerings to try to get them back. And some of them have worked for a little bit. Like Diary of a Wimpy Kid came out at the same time that Leepike did. And they've, chased and chased.
Isn't Series of Unfortunate Events another example of sort of like bleak storytelling?
Just like blue. Okay. This captured male readers as well. And they laughed because it was transgressive and startling and subversive when it was being read to them in a classroom. And they kind of got pulled in that 10 to 12-year-old age. It really, really got them in that 10 to 12. And then there were these moments where they were chasing and chasing and chasing, trying to catch them. And then they were like, you know what? Never mind. They're all pictures now. Here's the graphic novels. Here's this.
Far away now.
And you can see how I have a very low opinion of boys and males. And I think I should. We're very simple. But the thing is, it's having a low opinion, meaning like you're aware of the weaknesses and you're aware of how ridiculous we can be, how picky we can be.
Yeah.
Is not necessarily patronizing. But the whole industry did this really patronizing thing of like, we realize that you're idiots. We know you're stupid and we need to talk loudly and slowly because you're morons.
Right.
We have to pursue you this way.
Yeah.
And so the stuff they chased them with, some of it worked, some of it didn't. But the stuff they chased the Captain Underpants and these things like that, some of it was really, really patronizing.
Yeah.
Some of it they understood and they grabbed them, but it was like we're still aiming lower and lower and lower. And then the readership left. Like they're finally just, I would just say, gone. They're just basically not there anymore. And I'm especially new readers onboarding. So there's still older generations that are still buying some books, reading books, but they moved on. And as they moved on, they moved into passive media and they started watching more and more streaming. And then they moved on from that.
Yeah.
And now it's video games, some like video games that are communal and competitive and things they can do with friends over distance and stuff, and doom scrolling.
I mean, think about males in the epics from ancient times.
Right.
Very complicated stuff. Extremely detailed.
Yep. Gory.
Guys loved it. And then, I don't know, you jump to Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
And you find out, like, as much as my kids do like Percy Jackson, it's not something I can go back to and enjoy. I tried recently just to see what it was like. And you realize, that's what you're talking about. That's the patronizing aspect of it. Where you've taken the Odyssey.
Are you technically, when are you going to be middle-aged, Brian?
Is that when I'm 40?
Yeah.
4 years from now.
4 years. So you're the ripe old age of 36.
Yes.
Was there a time in your life when you liked Mountain Dew? Mm-hmm. Could you just go pound a Mountain Dew right now?
I wouldn't, no.
No. It's that kind of a thing where like Percy Jackson is like cherry blaster Mountain Dew. Right. It's like something like that.
Right.
you know,
I just don't have the
worked
desire
for somebody when they were at the skate park when they were 13.
Yeah. When Halo came out on the original Xbox, we drank a lot of Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's and it is funny to watch. They haven't onboarded onto anything. I do feel like the literary industry has really gotten insufferable with itself as well. It's lost the adults. I don't know. It feels like it's being chased that way with video games as well. The video games are now multiple storylines with the DEI jammed into it. And it's more and more just convincing people that, don't come out to anything that anybody tries to sell you.
So comics and gaming are being ripped in half by the DEI woke stuff and have been for some time.
Yep.
And because there was a moment in time when those on the outer curve of culture were those people from the alphabet community. Like they're over there being weirdos, and the furries, and
I think a lot of manga stuff. That's what we talked about.
Yeah. So it's like, so there's a lot of that over there.
Yeah.
And so when they were weird, when these weirdos were looking for stuff that they could read that would, entice their fantasy and all that kind of stuff, they went to the fringes, and that's where they were. And so those places actually got like lefty progressive woke first in many situations.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So when people were being driven out of the mainstream, when mainstream people, normies, when normies who were looking for normie culture couldn't find any normie culture at all, and they're turning to look for something in another place,
they were like, this is weird.
Then they're like, whoa, like this
won't be doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like even weirder. And the fact is now it's kind of weird. A lot of people have asked me about anime over the years, and we really should probably do.
I have it on our list, but
we should do an episode at some point, because there are actually some mainstream classic hero's journey anime stories that are coming out and are being released, and they're being massive. They're hitting massively. And that's, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So
we had to move to a different country in order to get our stories.
Yeah. And it's actually, and some of it's showing up on Netflix, and they're seeing enormous views and retaining male viewers for a lot of these anime. It's not all on Netflix, but for these anime series that are really classic, meaning not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Just high stakes, violent, sacrificial, courageous, etc.
A good example of the opposite would be, I just heard recently that another game I played in college or high school was Assassin's Creed, right?
Yeah.
Very violent.
Yep.
Historical fiction as well. So you got to feel like you knew Renaissance Italy and all the medieval weapons, and thought that was awesome and did appeal to males. Now they've got a bunch of like bisexual characters in their latest Assassin's Creed. Like, just an example of not understanding.
About time.
Yeah. What are we doing? You're making a game about an assassin. You don't need to have like a gender queer storyline.
You don't need a deviancy.
Yeah.
And it is. So right now, it's funny to me, in this tweet I was going to respond to, I never did, that's talking about the lack of publishing for boys and like how parched the land is. It is interesting, but it's something that's been in discussion for 20 years. And the conversations I was having 20 years ago in New York are now everywhere in LA.
That's funny.
At every studio, we have to get the male audience.
So does this flatter us that publishing leads the way, perhaps?
Dies first. Yeah, it actually is.
Is the written word ahead of this curve here, or is it just legacy institutions are what are just falling one after
I think the written word's ahead of the curve. I really do think it is. And I think that New York has always been, at least in the recent decades, intimidated by what's coming out of LA. Because LA is the cool kids, and then now they're hip. These guys read and had good SAT scores in New York. And so they're fundamentally insecure about those guys who are throwing the big parties and are in the cool club. So that dynamic was funny. But over in LA, there's insecurity about how dumb they are, and New York is intelligent. And so it was really beneficial to me to be publishing in New York and having these conversations in LA. And it was beneficial to me to be doing things in LA and having those conversations in New York. I was able to work those insecurities both directions.
Idaho's perfectly in the middle.
Yeah. And So it really is funny. It really is funny. So having a book having bestsellers is very helpful in conversations in LA.
Yeah.
And having TV shows and having made stuff is very helpful in conversations in New York. And for different reasons. So it's strange though. And it's strange to have been part of all these conversations related to boys once and to be having this weird deja vu as I'm having them all again.
Apparently no one listened to you on the first time around.
No, apparently not. I was unclear. But to be completely honest, I never saw this. I never really understood what was going to happen.
And just the whole tuning out, completely not watching, reading, or consuming anymore.
And so what I said, doom scrolling, is like, if we're being realistic, the guys, the culture of the United States of America, teenage boys, like they're not reading books. So they just aren't. And the last time any of them were like, whoa, I saw this amazing book review. I saw this, like what would make them want to go?
What would they see? Yeah.
What would they see that would make them go want to read this book? They saw this amazing book. I really am excited to read this.
Yeah. Cause the bookstores are gone too.
I'm super eager for this, whatever. And then Netflix is throwing shows at them and they're failing. They're failing to grab them. They grab them occasionally. Then they all get excited about Dune and then they leave and they wait for the next one. And they are playing video games, doom scrolling, and consuming porn.
Yeah. And
that's it. And so that's where it's gone. And the idea of LA even losing men and even video games losing men, which they are also, is remarkable. Like that's just not something I would have anticipated. And then you're like, oh wow, they've fallen all the way down into doom scrolling and porn.
Yeah.
And that's just that's where the narrative is, which is going to bear some pretty toxic fruit, shall we say.
Yeah. That's a long lifetime to do nothing. That's a long lifetime to starve.
Right. Yep. And on the other side, we have, unfortunately, a lot of women who are going down this horrible road with all these weird narratives and needing attention and everything else and all the lies of social media. And they're all falling all the way down into prostitution. And so this digital prostitution that's just booming massively in a decentralized Uber kind of approach, via isolated platforms, really honestly, OnlyFans and everything that's going on over there. It's Uber for porn.
Yeah.
And the way in which people are being debased on both sides, like the way in which girls are being debased at a massive level, and the road they took via a lot of bad storytelling into that place is dark and bleak, while boys have fallen down the stairs in the other direction.
Yeah.
And they're both just being fundamentally debased. It's really, really...
It is funny, though, even in that situation, we still have those stories that are reassuring both sets that they're in the right spot. And that, to me, you have the narrative just constantly being recycled where you're like, yeah, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, follow your heart.
Follow your heart, yeah.
Do you. Whatever's best for you,
Yeah.
And so it's bleak. And yet there is a God, and the Spirit moves, and people are converting at a higher rate. Like it really feels like the early bubbles of revival happening in terms of the way conversion is happening. And it's like, are we at the bottom of the stairs yet? I know that often we have to fall all the way to the bottom of the stairs before we have a big turning. And it feels like we're pretty close. So like culturally we've gone down. So in this conversation, when people are like, man, there's just not very many books for boys anymore. And I think we're so far past that.
Yeah.
Where
it's kind of funny.
A bunch of girls that were, when I first started touring and seeing school kids around the world, I'm like, I don't even want to think about how many of these girls have fallen all the way into digital prostitution.
Right.
How many of these boys are just porn addicts now?
Yeah.
It's just the collapse has been incredible.
How do you talk? Maybe this has to be a whole totally separate one, but how do you talk to your kids about that when everything is trying to suck them down those two stairs, those two separate institutions here?
Well, I mean, honestly, inspiring your kids to hard work and getting the dopamine in early when they do cool things with friends, achieving things in the real world, sharing stories, reading aloud. You know, it's like doing all those things, having gone through really good stuff, having really smelled the aroma of
Real
Tolkien
life.
at the dinner table with your family, being able to talk about it to your friends who also have experienced that. They've also gone through that. Having family movie nights and feeling the joy of that, and actually consuming this as a family, that this is, we're breaking bread this way.
Sure.
And then having intact families was huge, but having intact families that are joyful together, and you kind of get outside of this little algorithm pigeonhole where you and dad,
individuals.
you and dad are doing something cool together.
Right.
And you and dad are working on archery, and you and your sister love this show together. And like, it's, you know, you're consuming covenantally, collectively. You don't step into this really, really atomized recipient of the algorithm.
Yeah.
Like, just to your tastes, to your proclivities, to your temptations, just getting them out of that so they grow up away from it. And I would actually just say to everybody out there, it's one of the most important things is keep your kids off social media through adolescence. Just make sure that they are not an adolescent coming of age in the algorithm.
Habits. Like, do you want the habits of falling down the stairs towards
Yes.
OnlyFans or pornography
Bloop, bloop, bloop,
watching?
bloop, like bloop, 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 just down. Like, no, like, get them off social
Post
media.
yourself for likes. That's a habit.
Yep,
you know?
immediately. Like, you start cultivating that, farming.
The For You tabs on whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So I really do think that life together, joy together, travel together, I don't care how far, go on adventures together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like eating together, adventuring together, loving the lovely, enjoying the joyous together is really, really huge. And kind of like popping out of those little micro-generational algorithms, really.
Yeah. I think it's James that describes people like that as shining like stars in the midst of a dark, you know, so, and so I think you're right that there's that sort of tangible aspect when you meet somebody who's joyful and not stuck in themselves.
Yep.
And
when you meet a kid or a young adult, somebody in college, somebody late high school who has loyalty to their family, when they have love and loyalty to their family and talk about what they have done with their family, what their family does, and this is what we've done together. It's like it's not that you're fine. You know, there's plenty of assaults coming at you, but you are equipped. Like, the equipment is there for you to succeed. When you encounter kids who are like, oh, like, can't stand my sister, not looking forward to being home.
Yeah.
That stuff, it's like, ooh, you're one of the weak and sickly in the herd. On the edge, you're going to get picked off.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get picked off. And so it's tragic and it's true. But when people have loyalty and affection for their family and for what they have done with their families together, the things they have experienced together, and it can be all sorts of things. It doesn't have to be activity day. Yeah. And the more you try to force it, you know, the more dangerous it could be. I mean, I had times I'd drive with the kids and they would flip a coin. As soon as we got out of town, they'd flip a coin whether we're going straight or turning. And like, we just, like, it was really, they're all in the car and laughing and like, we're flipping the coin and just going wherever. And doing whatever together. And we've done big treks together. Like, we've done big adventures together. We've done small adventures together.
Yeah.
When they were really little, just going to the river when it was in February with rubber boots and they're splashing in the, you know, in the river at a weird time.
Right.
You know, just kind of doing these unexpected things. But consuming the same stories, loving what's lovely together, laughing at the same humor together is really, really great. It's fantastic. And it's some of the best protection they could have is connectivity to a herd immune system. And it's when they start to become really unique and special and with their own tastes. But I have the things I like to watch that none of my family likes. I have the books that I love that they hate. That kind of differentiation is the top of the stairs that just kind of bam, 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 bam. You know, you can get wrecked that way. So anyway, I think right now, this big conversation about books for boys, for everybody who listens to this, you're already in a subculture. You're already in a subculture that likes stories and likes to read. And some of the best things you can do are to make those things communal, where at least, at the very least, you start with all the kids together and ice cream and reading aloud, and I'm reading you the story. And I know you've all read it before, but we're doing it together. Or we're reading King Solomon's Minds aloud. We're doing this new thing, and we're going to consume it together. And then when your 13-year-old is amped and doesn't want to wait, and they want to run ahead and read the book real fast, sure, great. Like,
yeah,
okay. I mean, there's a different kind of frustration when you make them wait for the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old or whatever. But that family culture is essential, I think.
Yeah.
So,
no,
and anyway, great. Don't feel too doomed. You know, God is real.
Right.
He composts a culture and he grows really great crops in that compost. And I think that's where we are. We're in late stages of compost.
We're also not giving up on publishing yet.
No, we're all in on publishing. I've gone long.
In fact, the opposite.
I'm very bullish on publishing. I've gone long on publishing. When I started the Ashtown Burials Book 4 series, it was really important to me that I do the physical newspaper thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just sending out a PDF. Like, we're doing really physical artifacts, and we're big on it. I think there's no accident that the world hates it, and there's no accident that it will outlive it all, and that God will bless it. The written word sticks.
It's a good place to end.
There we go.
Some people prefer to be cremated instead of buried, but Granddad wanted to be buried.
You are dying. So am I. Every second I create more of my past, more decisions, more breathing, more love and more loathing. All of it slides by into the gone as I grab at more moments, at memories just made and already fading. We are all authors, creators of our pasts, authors of the books that will be our lives. When we race across the wet concrete of time without purpose, without laughter and love and sacrifice, then we fail in our mortal moments. See the past, see your life as the fruit of providence and thousands of personal narratives. What led to you? Lighthearted tales of neighborhood love, great tales of migrations, epic tales of global wars and comedies, dark stories about brothers and murder, tales of rape and grief and persecution. You did not choose where to set your feet in time. You choose where to set them next. Pause, breathe, eyes front. See the future. Do not stare into the fog of distant years. See the crystal choices as they race towards you in this sharp foreground we call now. The future flies at you in a never-ending storm of possibilities. God says create. God says live. Choose. Shape the past. Etch your lives in stone, and what you make will be forever. You are dying. So am I. We march from page to page, and it is our living that takes us toward the end. Children will follow, reading our stories, built on our stories, set in a place and in a time that we helped choose for them. They will be the ones to shut the book behind us. They will dig holes and arrange flowers. They will fill out forms. Cause of death, life. May it be the truth.
What's the point of the whole Bible?
Kill the